Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today I'm here with Lindsey Chrisman. Hi, Lindsey.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So you have this incredible story, and I'm super, super stoked. So Lindsey is a 2014 West Point graduate, the first female in U.S. Army history to pilot the AH-6 Little Bird in special operations, a student at Harvard Business School, and is the co-founder and CEO of MyHome, an AI-driven marketplace that coordinates and predicts home maintenance tasks for owners. Oh my God, that's like way overdue. Why has nobody done that yet? That's incredible. So I've got to start at the obvious question. What made you want to be a pilot and drive to get that drive to go to West Point? And I need to start there. That's amazing.
Yeah. A lot of people ask that question because a lot of the students that go to West Point come from military families, military backgrounds, histories. And I don't come from that background.
Really?
I grew up in New Jersey. And when I was around 10, 11 years old, my parents brought my brothers and I up to West Point, so it was only an hour away, for a family picnic. And I mean, my dad absolutely loves our nation's history. If we're driving down the highway and there's one of those brown signs, something like, "Oh, Stonewall Jackson's burial place," you best believe we're pulling over and we are reading and learning everything about Stonewall Jackson's burial place.
I love it.
We go up to West Point, and I mean, as just a young person, I was obsessed with everything that I saw. I mean, absolutely enamored. I just decided at that point, I really just think like, oh God, just kind of whispered into my ear. There was just this moment of like this aha moment. This is exactly where I need to be.
Oh, that's awesome.
West Point ended up being the only school that I applied to.
Wow, that's like
in high school.
throwing the dice, because it's really hard to get into academies, like really hard. Like, what is the acceptance rate? Like 5% or something, I heard?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and I definitely threw all of my eggs into one basket, literally. But I kind of just worked my entire middle school, high school career towards that goal.
Yeah.
And I was able to basically like generate a resume based off of like what West Point wants to see. And I was also pretty good at track. I ran in the Junior Olympics when I was younger. And so I got recruited for track, which was a huge plus. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is really cool, because I mean, the academies are really something to strive for. And, like my son actually wants to go to the Naval Academy. And, I keep saying like, please have a backup plan, because it's really hard to get in there. Like,
well, if he wants to talk to anybody, let me know. I have a bunch of Naval Academy friends. I can also talk about, the application process. It's pretty similar, but it's very intense.
Yeah, it is. It is. And like, I think he's super intimidated by it, but he really wants to do it. So he's talked about Air Force Academy or Naval Academy. He wants to fly.
Nice.
And so the fact that you were flying at West Point is like super exciting. Like, I'm so happy to talk to you, because West Point that was one of the schools that was represented at this like Academy Day that was hosted by one of our congressmen. And they talked about like West Point people were like, you can fly helicopters. And my son was like, that's kind of cool.
I mean, helicopters are badass.
They are. So what made you, so once you got into West Point, what drew you into the flying part?
Yeah. I think that I was always very attracted to like the combat arms aspect of the Army. And when I was there from 2010 to 2014, women could not branch infantry. And aviation was actually the only combat arms branch that women could go into. And I just wanted to, do something very impactful and meaningful. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go to West Point. And I felt like if I could fly helicopters and fly attack helicopters, I'd be as close to the fight as I possibly could be,
That's
as a
awesome.
woman.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, things have changed. Women have gone through ranger school, and now they can branch infantry and everything, which is incredible. But when I was there, that wasn't the case. So I was like, what's
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I can do that will get me as close to the action as humanly possible? And flying attack helicopters was definitely that path. So, I mean, I hadn't had my mind set on flying the Apache helicopter for basically the entire 4 years that I was there. I
Yeah.
had we do this cool week at West Point. It's called Branch Week. I'm sure all the academies do it.
Okay.
And they basically bring in all the different branches. So, you have infantry and aviation and air defense artillery and, military intelligence, all these different jobs that, as a cadet you go into when you commission.
Mm-hmm.
And they flew an Apache right onto the plane, which is just like the big parade field right out in front of West Point.
That's
And I was like,
awesome.
that's the coolest thing I've ever freaking seen.
I love it.
So I was just like, what? This is being able to like have the opportunity to fly that one day. I was like, yes, sign me up
Yeah.
right now.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
kind of just, worked hard to get a good OML so that I could choose my branch because I just really wanted to fly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's tough. I mean, because I know in the Air Force and in the Navy as well, it's even if you go in there with full intentions of flying, there's still a small percentage of people who actually do it. Because
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it. And is it the same in with helicopters? Like I know for the Navy, for fighter pilots, you have to be a certain size, a certain weight, a certain height. Like there's physical requirements. You have to be able to take a certain number of G forces. Like you have to go through all
Yeah.
this rigorous testing in order to even know if you are physically capable of doing it.
Yeah.
So what is it like with flying helicopters? Because I imagine there's also some similar rules in terms of, being able to be, super fit. You could be flying for a while. So tell me about what are some of the specifications of that?
Yeah, it's actually a lot less strict, more
Mm-hmm.
lenient than
Mm-hmm.
the Air Force and the Navy in that regard. For the Army, in order to be a pilot, you have to have a certain vision that's correctable. So correctable up to 20/20. So even if you're
Okay,
wearing contacts or wearing glasses, you're still okay.
that's good.
There's really no height requirement. There
Mm-hmm.
are some aircraft that smaller sized people will struggle to fly. So they'll recommend, trying to get into a different aircraft to see how you feel in that aircraft itself. But there's really no specific requirement, which is kind of cool
Yeah.
because there's different ways that you can configure the cockpit. You can move your pedals in.
Mm-hmm.
Even people that are really, really tall, sometimes their like helmets are actually like
Right.
touching the roof of the
Right.
aircraft.
Right.
They just kind of like slouch down a little bit more than than
Uh-huh.
everyone. But I've never in my career of flying and at West Point met someone who was disqualified because of some sort of, being too short or being too
Yeah.
tall or
Yeah.
being, don't not weighing enough. And which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, flying some of these helicopters, especially when I flew the Apache for about 3 years, and then I went into special operations and flew for their 160th. And the aircraft that I flew there, the AH-6 Little Bird, was very, very physically demanding.
Yeah.
And if you want to kind of continue your career and go to that next level and fly for special ops, there are definitely some physical requirements that you have to be able to pass in order to be selected to fly that particular airframe. So I think if there's anyone out there that's eager like your son, even if he wants to go to West Point and fly helicopters, you definitely have to be in good physical shape in order to keep on top of all, like, it's just very demanding physically.
Absolutely. Well, and I imagine that they also have to prepare you for, if the helicopter goes down, you have to be able to be able
Yeah,
to
we go
fight
to
in
SEER
combat.
school.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a fun time.
Yeah. So, for sure. So yeah, I have a really good friend of mine who was he didn't go to West Point, but he was Army special ops and he
Nice.
was a paratrooper. So he would jump out of airplanes and then start battling. And so I'm like, wow, you just look for that one more thing. So like, how do I make this as extremely difficult as possible?
Yeah, let's just add one more layer to making things more challenging. Let's jump out of
Yes.
planes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yes, it's fascinating, but so much respect and thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wouldn't have traded it for the world. I'm a
Hmm.
huge advocate now, going through the whole process myself, process being West Point and serving, for just I think everyone, not literally everyone should do it, but I think that it just really sets you up well. Like the Army is such a phenomenal place. You learn such really important
Yeah.
life lessons, leadership lessons. They teach you grit and determination and commitment and integrity. And I think that sometimes those things are lacking. And
Yeah.
it's just really a
Hmm.
great foundational beginning to, your life's journey.
I could not agree more. I think especially with people who and we live in a very privileged community. No matter what community you live in, in the United
Mhm.
States has so much privilege. And for us to go and serve, it just teaches you, like you said, so many life lessons and things that, we take for granted, especially if you get deployed, you get to see what happens overseas.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. I mean, yeah, being overseas is a whole nother world.
for sure. So, that's an amazing story. So, congratulations on that success. Congratulations on being the first woman to fly that aircraft. I mean, that's just so much that you can then take with you for the rest of your life. You will always own that. So, I mean,
Yeah, and I
how
want more
cool.
women to go out there and do it
Heck
too.
yeah. Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
there's been a couple
100%.
women that have tried out to fly that same aircraft and haven't made it yet, but one day someone's gonna roll in those doors and just absolutely crush it, and I just cannot wait to see who
Oh,
she is.
I love it. I love it so much. So you get out of the military and then you're like, I'm gonna go do Harvard now. Like, how does that like that wasn't challenging enough, right?
Yeah, I know. Maybe one of these days I'll slow down. Probably not.
I
Um,
love it.
Yeah, I just figured that it was time to get out of the military. I had done
Uh-huh.
all the things that I really wanted to do. I felt a little bit intellectually capped in my role. I just wanted to kind of, broaden my experience in the world and not just have
Hmm.
like one career path, but kind of go out and do something different. And so I decided that it was time to get out. And I thought, what's a better way to kind of reintegrate myself back into the civilian world
Uh-huh.
than to go to business school?
Right,
I felt
right,
like I was a little bit behind my peers in that regard, where, being in the military, yes, while they teach you some incredible life lessons and everything, you
right,
are definitely behind the power curve when it comes to the business world.
right,
Um,
right.
so I was like, oh, I'm gonna apply to a bunch of schools and see where I land. And I did land at HBS at Harvard. So
Wow, that's incredible. That's so cool. So you went into Harvard to get a business degree. And so why business? Why that particular? Because I mean, I know with the military, there's so many avenues where you would
yeah,
thrive. And I mean, business obviously being one of them, but why business?
yeah. Everyone's like, wait, don't you just want to go fly commercial
Right. Yeah, yeah. Of
rotary
course,
wing and
there's a lot of
find like
money in that.
private rich people around? And I'm like, not a bad option.
I know. Lots of money.
But yeah, business. I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Even in the military, I just really love the idea of innovation and creating something that doesn't exist. And thought that, like, what better way to really learn the business side of things? Like, yes, I might have the creative aspect, the leadership aspect of it, but I kind of need a little bit of business acumen to,
Yeah,
to go along, to complement those other skills that I'm coming to the table with.
sure.
And business school was just the right option for that.
Yeah.
It just fit the bucket.
Yeah, yeah. And I love it because you're a trailblazer, so you fit right into the entrepreneurial, mindset. So that's fantastic. So while you're so you haven't graduated with your MBA yet, right?
Correct. Yeah, I
But
still have
you
one more
just
year.
couldn't wait. You were like, I'm just gonna go start my company now. I'm just like,
Honestly,
I'm kind
that's
of bored. I need a little bit more action in my life. I need to go be an entrepreneur like right now.
oh my gosh, like day one of Harvard last year. So my first year, it's a 2-year in-person program. One of our main professors was like, don't start a company while you're at Harvard. Guess what I go and do in January? I wasn't
I
even
love it.
done with my first year, started a company.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of
So
course.
it's working out. So
Yeah.
far it's been absolutely incredible. I mean, I think that it's tremendously beneficial to start a company while you're at Harvard because you have all of the resources. You have the network,
Hmm.
the professor network, the alumni network, all of my classmates who are so incredibly helpful because these people are so smart. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
100 times smarter than I am. And it's just wonderful to be able to bounce ideas off of these individuals. And, it just helps guide everything along in the direction where you envision it to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes you come in and run into roadblocks, but you have the right people in your network that you can talk to help navigate those. And I find it has just been just really, really helpful.
You're absolutely right because I mean one of the hardest parts of being an entrepreneur is the loneliness and the you feel like you're on an island, you know? And so like when I first started my company, one of the challenging aspects of that was I didn't feel like I had anyone to go to, right? So it's like you have your family, you have your friends and they're wonderful and they're a great support system because they know who you are, but they don't understand business. And so you're absolutely right. You kind of have a built-in tribe of, consultants who can
Yeah.
help you with everything while you're in business school. So that's fantastic.
It's just helpful. And we have the Rock Center for Entrepreneurship. So it's just completely centered around, starting a company, creating a
Hmm.
venture on your own. And then we have the Harvard Innovations Lab, which is an incredible resource too. I mean, there's a lot up there in Boston, in the Cambridge area,
Yeah.
where you can thrive as an entrepreneur as long as, you have that grit and determination and you can make those challenging decisions. Um,
Hmm.
but man, the resources are endless.
Yeah, for sure. And I would encourage you when you get out of Harvard to continue that because like there's so many great groups. Like I belong to one called Clipco and I love it because it is a group of entrepreneurs. And I can tell you that at any given time, I will shoot out a group text, be like, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. And I
Yeah.
will get the best minds on this. And we're, it's a collection of friends, resources. It's an amazing group of people that you can always go to if you need. So
Yeah, I mean, if you
I
have any recommendations for those
yeah,
types of networks afterwards,
absolutely.
yes, I absolutely love networking. I love meeting new people,
Hmm.
trying to see how I can help in different
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm.
So, yeah, just I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's so helpful. I mean, it has given me light years of experience that I wouldn't have had like the time to actually have. But it's the resources and the connections and what you
Yeah.
learn in a short amount of time with people who have been there and done that, even if they're completely different industries. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So with my home, why that business and why did I mean I think it's a brilliant business personally because I freaking love DIY and like maintenance schedules and like I need somebody to keep me on track. So but why
Yes.
why this business?
So, my husband Gabe also went to West Point.
Okay.
We graduated together. 2014 grad. He played rugby there. He was in the infantry when he got out. So while I was flying helicopters,
Yeah,
he was on the ground kicking indoors.
that's
And
awesome.
he actually ended up getting out in 2020 and was like, you know what? I don't want to work for anybody. I want to do something on my own.
Uh-huh.
Also, he has a very strong entrepreneurial bug. And he started a restoration company here in Nashville. So they did property restoration, big loss, water, fire, mold, you name it. So
Very cool.
we've been in the home services ecosystem for the past 4 years. And we kind of like to say we accidentally validated this idea through
Yeah.
the restoration company because we were able to talk to thousands of homeowners and hundreds of business owners to really figure out what their pain points were. And one thing that we
Mm-hmm.
recognized was this home services ecosystem, especially for homeowners, is so fragmented. So,
Mm-hmm.
homeowners are stuck leaving a check in their mailbox for their lawn care guy, and he only responds via text message. And then you have, maybe a cleaning company that comes, every month or whatever it is, and they only do Venmo. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just all over the place. You're Venmoing, you're leaving cash, you're leaving checks. Some may take credit card. It's just fragmented and it's a
Yeah.
pain.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no place to really find high quality vendors in your area, high quality professionals. So what My Home does is we actually consolidate all of those pain points into one app. So it's
Very
one
cool.
place to schedule, book, communicate, so in-app messaging, and pay all of your home service vendors, and everything is consolidated onto that one platform. So we do all the screening, all the vetting. It's an invite only on the professional side for the companies.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very strict for them to get in. We have very high standards. We also interview them, face to face or via Zoom to make sure, we're checking for things like integrity. What is their response when I say, well, what happens if you misschedule and you don't show up, to a homeowner? What happens if this goes on? How do you treat the homeowners? We want to make sure that these people that we're matching with the homeowner is just the highest quality, someone that you can trust. Because we believe at My Home that we're going to be there for you 24/7. Anytime you need anything for your home, any type of reminders, any type of, rescheduling with one of your professionals or whatever it is, we want to be there for you so that you can go and do other important things in your life, like hang out with your family or go on
That's
a walk with your
awesome.
dog.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like we want, how, I don't personally truly remember this that well, but I kind of vaguely remember my dad, where we would go on a road trip and we had like an actual physical map, like a big book of maps of the state, and
Oh, yeah.
we would be, like tracing and printing out things on MapQuest. And back in the day, it used to be a very thoughtful process to
Yes.
navigate from point A to point B, and now you just hop on your phone, type it in, Waze, Google, whatever it is, and it's an afterthought. You don't even think about it. We
Yeah.
want that same type of convenience and afterthought for home maintenance. You shouldn't have to remember to get your HVAC filters changed or to flush your water heater. It should just be automatically done for you.
Yeah.
So for homeowners, they can subscribe to subscription plans, preventative maintenance plans. There's a whole slew of just ways to make the process as easy as possible for homeowners.
Oh my God, that is the most amazing thing. I mean, like, this is one of those things where you're like, why has that not existed before? Because honestly, like,
I
I
get that
can't
question
tell.
a lot.
Yeah. Like, I had my HVAC guy come out and he was like, have you been cleaning this? And I'm like, doing what? What? No. How do I
I
do
know.
that? Like, when do he's like, well, you should do this quarterly. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I
And
didn't
it's
know
just
that
such an
was a thing.
inconvenience. And you don't think about it because it's like your
Mm-mm.
HVAC, it just sits there.
It
You know
just
what I mean?
works. It just goes until it doesn't go. And then you're freaking out and you're having to
And
hire
then you're
somebody.
out 10 grand
Yes,
because a
yes,
whole new HVAC system is incredibly expensive
yes.
when you probably could have prevented that with a little bit of preventative maintenance.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
So we're here to help. We're here to help everybody.
I freaking love that concept so much because I just feel like it's long overdue. So I know you're in Nashville, but does this branch out into other cities?
Yeah, so right now we are just in Nashville.
Okay.
I mean, like I mentioned, we just launched it in January, so we're
Uh-huh.
we're
Uh-huh.
new.
Yeah.
We have closed our pre-seed round. We're actually on the App Store, both Google Play as well as the Apple Store. We have two apps. We have one for the professionals, for the companies, then
Mm-hmm.
we also have one for the homeowners, of course.
Nice.
So everyone can go out and download it and use it and everything. You might not get matched with a vendor if you're not in the Nashville area.
Sure.
But we're also using that data that we collect from homeowners that download it and try and book, just to see if it's possible that we could just kind of scale this a little quicker than than we had
Yeah.
anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but we want to make sure that the value that we're promising to the homeowner is what's actually being delivered here in Nashville before we start to scale this to other cities. Because I know this is a kind of a crazy statement, but I want my home to be basically in the hands of every American across the
Yeah.
country, almost like DoorDash, like Instacart,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uber. We depend on those types of things for all different aspects of our life. Why isn't there one to help us maintain literally most people's most valuable asset, which is their home?
Absolutely. So how do because we're talking about homeowners using it, how do you expand into the renter market and, those other markets where, you could tap into that? Have you guys thought about how to make that leap?
Yeah, it's really good for if so as as a homeowner, if you have multiple properties, so say you have a long-term rental and you're managing that from a distance, you can
Mm-hmm.
on the platform, you can actually have multiple addresses and then you can manage all of the maintenance from wherever you are. And then in terms of being a renter yourself, it's the same exact concept, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
renters keep up with the home maintenance themselves. So they're responsible for getting the lawn cut. They're responsible for making sure, that the gutters are cleaned, twice a year, that the leaves are removed, all of those different types of things. It's 100% applicable and useful for the renter too, because even if they don't own the property, they're still responsible for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just going to simplify their lives. And then the cool part too is we have it's called the MyHome Hub. And what it does is it actually digitizes all of the home's previous maintenance records.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
one place for homeowners, renters to upload important documents like warranties, policies, important contact information, so that all of that information for your home is actually digitized and stored. And it's categorized by room, interior, exterior. So it's just one place where homeowners can go to reference information. So if you're a renter, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and you wanted to get a wall painted, maybe like an accent wall, and you then end your lease and someone else moves in, that My Home Hub, which is essentially the Carfax for your home, that information can be sent to the next renter, and now that renter knows exactly that paint color that you use to
That's
paint
really
that wall.
cool.
So they don't have to cut out a piece of the drywall and bring it to Home Depot
Yes.
and do their paint matching. It's just all stored right there. So the Carfax for your home aspect is going to really help new homeowners, is if they're moving into
Mm-hmm.
a property that has been properly maintained, it's has all of the information digitized for you. And then there's also avenues down the line where we can increase home value. We could potentially reduce your insurance premiums
Mm-hmm.
if you
Mm-hmm.
have done the appropriate types of home maintenance that's required in the preventative world. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things that can come with digitizing that history of the home.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it so much. This is a fantastic idea, and I'm super excited for you guys to expand, get that seed round, and really blow this thing up. I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, because this is one thing that I'm always so curious about. Do either of you have a technical background for like writing apps and all of that?
Yeah, we don't. No.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
awesome.
why we have a
Yeah,
CTO.
yeah.
Yep.
So how did you find, like, how do you come up with the concept of like, this is what I want for an app, and how hard is it to have that designed, without a technical background? Because I'm the same way. I don't have a technical background, and I've thought about, like, I'd like to put together an app for my company, but I don't even know where to start with that. So
Yeah.
how do you even start with, I have this great idea. I think it could be a great app, but I don't know how to build an app. So how do you get started with that?
Yeah, the first thing was we needed to find a CTO who we knew was going to be able to do this with us.
Hmm.
So we got really, really lucky, and we found the most incredible individual. His name's Joel. He has over 15 years of software development experience. He's actually
Nice.
here local in the Nashville area, and he has just been a lifesaver for this entire process.
Uh-huh.
So I think relying on people who are experts in that field is probably the best way, or I guess is the way that we kind of went about making sure that we were on the right track with everything. But then we're just very collaborative, Gabe and I and
Hmm.
Joel. We have just spent countless hours working out, Figma wire diagrams and,
Hmm.
how is this going to be envisioned? Because there's so much to it. It's a very, very complex problem to solve, especially with a two-sided, maybe even considered three-sided marketplace that we're
Right.
building. Multiple apps, web version, Google, Apple Play Store, like Apple Store. There's a lot to it. So we had to find a way to keep everything on track and organized. So, we use Confluence and Jira to keep ourselves, in all of our sprints, and making
Yep.
sure that we assign the appropriate amount of time to get certain tasks completed. And yeah, we just kind of kept our heads down and
Yeah. Yeah.
grind it out for
Yeah.
a while.
So how long did it take you to develop the framework for the app and then be able to launch the technology from the
Yeah,
time of concept to completion?
so we started development February of 2024, and we
Okay.
today, which is ironic, literally today, August 16th is our launch day.
Yay,
Um,
congratulations. That's
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like there's just an article that came out in Yahoo Finance. They published an article on us today. So we're
Nice.
hoping that the word gets out there and starts to spread around a little bit. But yeah, so I guess, 6 months, I would say it took from
Yeah.
literally an idea in Gabe in my head to have an actual app on our
Yeah.
phones that's usable
Wow.
and functional.
And how stressful was it? Was it a lot of like back to the drawing board and like, hey, that didn't work. Let's retry something else?
Yeah, definitely. And it's not like we built this in a vacuum either.
Right.
Were so many conversations. I mean, hours upon hours upon hours of conversations with homeowners and most importantly with the vendors, the professionals, because we wanted to make sure that we were building something obviously for them. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just an idea that we have that we want to make easier for homeowners. It has to actually be, the value actually has to be there. So,
Right.
I mean, yeah, we did. I mean, there were days when I was in Target just doing interviews with random people shopping just to kind of gauge their interest in things and see,
Yes.
what are we doing here? Is this going to be beneficial? And you know, basically executing the book The Mom Test, like
Mm-hmm.
literally in real life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, because so many people missed out on the market aspect of it. Like you got to do your market research. And if you
Oh yeah.
don't, you might have this amazing product that you spent a year designing and nobody uses it because it's too cumbersome. Like and
100%.
I've had those where, I've gotten a product, I'm like, it sounds good in theory, but like I've tried to actually use the software, I've tried to actually use the app, and I'm like, it doesn't work right. Like it doesn't do what I need it to
Yeah,
do. And so I just quit it. And so,
exactly.
yeah, I've had a few of those actually recently. There was a company that I had, and I'm not going to call them out to the carpet on this, but it was like, for expenses. And like I wanted to be able to, kind of test it out. And so as I'm testing it, it kept sending me like, hey, we still need your bank account information, but it was sending me the same email like 20 times. And then like, hey, don't forget to log in. Hey, here's your login code. I'm like, you're glitching. I'm not giving you my bank account information right now. Like
Yeah, I
there's
know. It's
so
that's what's
much.
so scary about startups too is, I
Hmm.
mean, people expect perfection from day
Yes.
one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you're saying, "Oh, we're live now, we're launching," people think that it is going to be as perfectly flawless as, everything
Hmm.
else that's on your phone. So
Hmm.
it is a little scary in that regard. You have to find users that are willing to work with you along the way until you
Yep.
can get that perfectly refined product because I mean,
Yep.
expectation management is very, very important
Oh
in
yeah.
this.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you don't do it right the first time, like, even as far as like I've been in venues, like we have I used to do a lot of meeting management. And so we were at a hotel and they decided to keep the hotel open during renovation because they're like, well, we want to be able to continue to make money. And I'm like, bad idea. You
Yeah.
don't keep this open. So of course you wake up to like construction happening, next to your room and like, bulldozers. And I'm like, this is a five-star hotel and you've got
Yeah, and I'm
bulldozers going through
paying
the
all this
parking
money.
lot. Like terrible
Exactly.
idea. Shut it down. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. Expectation management is really critical because when somebody is booking a high-level hotel, they don't expect to wake up to the sound of like, drills and
I
and
know.
and other things happening all around. So,
And then, yeah,
yeah.
people using apps, they just expect it to work. They don't expect that they're going to get 15, email notifications
Right, right, exactly.
saying the same
So,
thing over and over again and sending verification codes. Yeah,
right,
so
right. Yeah.
it's a fine balance and it's just kind of part of the growing pains, It's
Hmm.
going to happen. There are going to be
Hmm.
pissed off people. We
Absolutely.
just have
Yeah.
to make sure that we are taking everything that everyone's saying and synthesizing it and then iterating on our product so that we just make sure that just continuous innovation and continuous upgrades and improvements so that
Hmm.
those types of things are a thing of the past.
Yeah. Well, and also respond, respond, respond. Like, when you're going through things like that, be responsive to your customers' needs because if they are going through something and they are having a bad time, you want to be responsive. You're like, great, I want to help you. Let's work
Yep,
through this, right? Because it's the
exactly.
ones that kind of put their head in the sand. They're like, okay, let's just try to, get out of this and we're not going to respond or acknowledge their complaint. That then it escalates, right? It gets worse and worse and worse because
Yep.
then it becomes another complaint. Well, the company wasn't responsive. And so, one complaint kind of snowballs into another and another and another. So, Yeah, being
customer support
responsive.
it's a real thing and it's
Hmm.
very important.
Yes, absolutely. So I got to ask you because I've gone down this path one time, but how is it working with your husband?
Honestly, it's the best thing.
That's awesome. I'm so happy that you said that.
Yeah, we work really, really well together. And
Good.
I think it kind of stems from just the experiences that we've been through in our lives,
Hmm.
making it through deployments, like very scary deployments, and all of the living apart for so many years. I mean, when we got married, we didn't even live in the same state. We ended up having
Wow.
to fly to different places
That's
after the
awesome.
wedding.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it it's wonderful. It's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful. And our strengths complement one another, our weaknesses complement each other. It's just a really, really strong working relationship. And I think we've done a really good job so far balancing the husband and
Uh-huh.
wife aspect
Yeah.
and the business partner aspect because they are two completely separate things. And we can't take the husband and wife aspect into the business in a sense where those problems can't come with us when we come into work every single day. It's got to be left at home, just like any employee would do. And I think so far we've done a really, really good job of keeping that balance and maintaining it to a healthy level on both the business side and the relationship side.
That's really, really good because that's the mistake I made because I had a business with my husband who is now my ex-husband. And part of that was we didn't know when to separate. Like we would go out to dinner together on a romantic dinner and talk about work the whole time. And like you have to be able to create that division. And even though you're
Yes.
both passionate and excited about it, it also has to be something where, you also have to put your relationship ahead of the business because
Yeah, it's
otherwise the
important. Yeah,
business won't survive. So,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Well,
Hmm.
congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, what challenges and obstacles have you had to overcome in starting this business?
Um, a lot,
Yeah.
countless. I mean, so far, I think the biggest challenge has just been expectation management on my side, on my end,
Yeah, because you're an
managing my own
overachiever.
expectations. Yeah. Because I have these like visions of just like these crazy ideas and everything. And
Yeah.
Joel, the CTO, is like, you gotta calm down.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't gonna happen in overnight. And so thank
Right.
God I have him on our team that's just like, okay, we've created lists, it's the must have, need to have, would like to have type of, fantasy list. And
Yeah.
that I think has been a huge learning curve because I've come to the table like, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do and we're going to nail it. And he's
Hmm.
like, okay, it's going to take us a little bit of time to get there.
That's awesome.
And, we just not jumping the gun on those types of things has been something that I've had to work on over the past 6 months just to kind
Right.
of make sure that, we're taking the feedback that's appropriate and implementing that and not just going off of our own gut instincts on a lot of these things because it's like I said before, it's really about the feedback and the customer engagement for us to build a product that's actually good and viable and
Hmm.
useful. And so I
Hmm.
think that that's probably one of the biggest things in terms of challenges. Um, it's obviously like budgeting is critically important. Building a
Yeah.
marketplace is very expensive.
Hmm.
So I think one thing that I learned early on was it's raising capital at this stage is very expensive, but there's really no other way to do it other than to just make the sacrifices at this stage and raise the money that's actually needed so that you can get off the ground
Hmm.
because if
Hmm.
if you do things, I don't want to say like in a cheap way, but if
Yeah.
if you're not efficient with your funds and you're not building something that is going to be useful, then you're just going to be wasting everyone's time and everyone's money. So
Yeah.
finding that like sweet spot of like where our budget sits, what our burn is and how can we optimize, our burn might be high, but how are we getting the most value out of that burn, I think is definitely
Hmm.
another component that's a work in progress over time.
Absolutely. And investors look at that. I mean, every company, especially tech companies, are going to have high burn rates, but are you getting something out of that? Like, is there
Exactly.
massive progress happening in that time period? And I think that's the key, and that's when people say,
Yeah.
okay, she's using our money smart, like everything is she's spending it, but they want you to spend it, right? Like it's all
Right.
about growth. It's all about creation. So you're supposed to spend the money, but at the same time, you need to get something out of that money too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
very cool. So do you do the pitches or who does the pitches when you guys talk to investors?
Um, most of the time we do it together,
Good.
honestly. Yeah, we enjoy talking, being in the same room together and talking to investors and whoever
Mm-hmm.
it is. There's been pitch competitions where just I've done it, just Gabe's done it, we've done it together. So it's really just now that we're getting a lot more busy, now
Yeah,
that, we're live and launching and making sure that things are working on the back end. It'll probably be more of like a one-on-one conversation going forward, just so that we can split our time more effectively and efficiently.
sure.
But both of us.
Yeah, very cool. Well, that's awesome. So you are obviously very, very inspiring. I think that you just can inspire so many people between West Point and being the first woman to pilot that particular aircraft to starting a business to going to Harvard. I mean, there's so many massive accomplishments that you've had, but who inspires you?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, I'm in. So growing up, my grandma was my biggest inspiration. Gran. She passed away when I was in high school of breast cancer.
Oh,
And that was really, really impactful for me when that happened, because one, she didn't tell us that she was sick and going through
really?
chemo. Yeah, and one day
Wow.
we just sat down and she sat my brothers and I down and was like, "I'm not going to make it through the summer." And I was like, "Wait, what?" Like I was too young to like
Wow.
really understand what that meant.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
then things just started to progressively get worse very quickly. But man, I would say that she was such an inspiration for me growing up. She taught me so many things. I mean, I spent all of my time with her, every single waking second that I possibly could with her. And just seeing her determination and her drive and how she ran her life and how good
Yeah.
of a person she was, I think that is what truly inspired me to try and always just be a good person. And I always say, my husband will laugh if he ever hears this, but my number one rule is just to be nice.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
learned that from her.
Uh-huh.
So it just that's she's definitely an inspiration. I think about her all the time. But like in terms of big picture kind of thing, I'm inspired by people like Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and people that have completely changed the world that we currently live in our
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
lifetime. I find that
Absolutely.
just absolutely incredible that, one individual can change so many lives based off
Mm-hmm.
of an idea that they had. I want to do something like that.
And the
That is,
tenacity to follow through with it, even despite, I mean, both of
yep,
them just get so much criticism and they have
I
so
know.
much, I mean, they have entire governments coming after them. I mean,
Yeah,
it's crazy how much they endure, but
yes,
they just keep pushing and they just
exactly.
are relentless about it. And I think that's amazing too. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah, like I mean, founders that have just grinded through the shit in the
Hmm.
trenches.
And there's a
I
lot of it.
love those stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of my favorite things to do is read biographies. Like whether I like the person or not, whether I am fascinated about why they make the choices that they make and how they've created what they've created in life,
Yeah,
and it is amazing to read what people have been through. And it's crazy because your childhood has such an impact on what you do as an adult and the choices that you
hmm,
make. And people just don't realize like how much those early learnings
yeah,
make you who you are. Just like you were talking about with your grandma. I mean, like it's that tenacity that you learned, that poise, that encouragement that she would give you, and that constantly showing up for her
yeah.
family. And that means a lot.
It really does. I know. Yeah. Speaking of books, I just finished reading Sam Waltman's autobiography.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I mean, what a story. Another
Really?
individual that has just completely changed the entire planet with his tenacity, with his drive, with his
Yeah.
idea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's just such a powerful thing that certain like onesie twosie individuals can make such a difference, and
I
it's
know.
so inspiring.
I know people always think that one person can't make a difference, and that is so far from the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
so far from the truth. So, yeah, I agree with you. So, as women, we give our power away a lot. Whether it is, giving someone else credit for our work, or, letting someone, um, I guess, criticize us, publicly or something like that. So we give our power away a lot, I think, as women. And I find it hard to believe that you would ever give your power away. But has there been a time that you've given your power away and another time that you've stepped into your power?
Um, I think so. When I was flying with the 160th, I wouldn't say I was like giving my power away, but there were definitely, I mean, 100% of the time, like gender did not matter. And I
Good.
and I just think that that was really important. Obviously I'm still a woman, and
Mm-hmm.
I was deployed with all guys. Like there were certain things that like I had to do differently, just as a person.
Right.
But in terms of like being in the role and flying the aircraft and, doing the missions or the training operations, whatever it was, there really wasn't like it wasn't like, oh well, she's a woman and he's a man. It just wasn't like that. It's just like, oh well, that's a pilot, that's a
Right.
160th AH-6 Little Bird pilot, regardless of gender. So um it's kind of hard to think of a time when I had to like give away that power. I guess in that regard, it would just be we were all in the same playing field. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily giving it away. It was just kind of stepping up to the plate. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I
That's
can't.
amazing. I
Yeah.
I love that so much because that was one of my thoughts is I wonder if you felt a lot of, gender discrimination or anything like that in the military, but it doesn't sound like you did because I think that, your tenacity and your drive kind of validated you. You know what I mean? Like you brought it every single day.
Yeah.
And so, that makes all the difference. And you weren't looking for like, hey, I need to be accommodated because, I
No.
need this and this and this. Like you showed up and, you proved that you belong there every single day.
Yeah, it really just comes down to the professionalism of the organization,
Hmm.
of everyone involved. It's just a very professional place to work and to be from. So
Hmm.
yeah, I just think that really like underlying value, the professionalism there is what differentiates that kind of like potential for a workplace of discrimination
Yeah.
from a gender perspective that just doesn't reside there because of how professional everyone is.
That's fantastic because there weren't very many women in at West Point, right? Like,
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean the fact that the leadership didn't, separate it out and like make it as if you were coming in as less than. So I think
Oh
that that's
yeah,
amazing.
definitely not. No. I mean,
That's
there
very cool.
my senior year I had to walk outside to go to the bathroom, but from my barracks room, my dorm
Yeah,
room. No, that's just kind of a joke, but
yeah. That's funny. That's awesome. Well, very cool. So what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
oh, man, where was I at 18? I guess I was a freshman at West Point. I think my biggest piece of advice is one, don't be intimidated by so many people. I have this like conception that everyone knows exactly what they're doing at all times, and that
Hmm.
my imposter syndrome is very, very strong. It's always kicking in. So I think I would tell myself people really don't always have it all together, even
No.
though they may come off like that. So just, be confident in your own abilities and your own self, and stop worrying so much about how other people are perceiving you, thinking that
Hmm.
you're quote unquote less, or less qualified, or whatever it is, because they're probably feeling the exact same way.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and it doesn't even matter what level you're at. I mean, there are
Yeah.
CEOs of major corporations who still have imposter syndrome. I mean,
Hmm.
there are professional athletes that still have imposter syndrome. So it doesn't matter what level you're at, you can still very much feel that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you're starting out, it's easy to feel that way, but everybody has their moments. Like
Yeah.
I might feel confident walking into a room with my employees, but I walk into a room with my clients and I'm like,
I know.
so,
Exactly. And I think like I would definitely tell myself to always just remain humble, and the humility aspect is so important. Like you can be confident but still remain humble with everything. And I think that finding that balance and teaching my younger self that balance would be really cool.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. So one more question. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, Lindsey. You have so much great stuff to say. So I appreciate that. But what do you wish more people knew
Like just in general.
in general?
Oh, that's a really good question. Uh, I mean, the one thing that I think of is always just like comes back to my home. There's just a random fact that just popped into my head, but
Uh-huh.
homeowners spend anywhere between 1% and 4% of their home's value on home maintenance annually.
Wow,
So, which is a huge
that's a
number.
lot.
And people don't think that they're spending that much on their home's
Yeah.
maintenance, and they are. So I think it would just be kind of cool to help educate homeowners on, the budgeting aspect of maintaining their home and how
Yeah,
to do
for
it more
sure.
efficiently and everything. So that I don't know why, but that popped into my head. What
Yeah,
else
it's
do
good
I
to
wish?
know. I had no idea. That's interesting, actually, and it makes sense. But yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You have been such a pleasure to talk to, and I mean, just so accomplished. I'm just, wow, you just have such an incredible future ahead of you, and I can't wait to see what you do.
Thank
And
you.
good luck with my home and with Harvard and
Yeah.
everything that you're doing, because I think you are just on the right track. And yeah, you and Gabe are going to do some really cool stuff. So congratulations on all of your
Thank
success
you.
so far. And thank you for your service, and to him too. And you are just amazing. And I can't wait to see what all you do.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, this has been really fun. I'm glad that we were able to connect and get that chat in.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time, and until then, step into your own power.